What is happening, party people? What is happening? It is your boy, Coach Sean, and I'm excited to share some space with you across the board, across all social platforms. Shout out to TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, everybody, whether you're watching live or stream replay. And it's a great chance that a lot of you won't catch this live um, because this is about to be probably one of the quickest streams I've done in a long time because I'm actually really on pace to make my call on time here in like the next less than 30 minutes. I got like 20 minutes to get this stuff to you, and I think we can do it. Okay. Of course, you guys check out the top of my page, all of you across the board on social media, if you have interest in getting a free relational diagnostic, free attachment style quiz, all the things that are available to you that I think will be really helpful for you when it comes to your dating life, your relationships, and beyond. All right. If you are interested in my secure program, be sure to either on my socials, preferably, send me a message with secure and I'll be able to get you going on that process. All right. So you can figure out what makes the most sense for you, next steps for you in regards to not just getting coaching, but experiencing transformation. All right. In your relationships to do relationships in a healthy way. If you're new, my name is Coach Sean. I'm a faith based relationship coach, and I've helped hundreds build healthier, happier, and whole relationships with themselves, with God, and with others while building security that lasts. And we have been in a series over this last week, pretty consistently discussing the dating app dilemma. Okay, should you use them? Uh, what's up with dating apps? Just opening up a safe space and conversation to engage in it because there's plethora of experiences, highs and lows, and everything else in between. And we're trying to figure out what is the best course of correction to engage in dating, find new relationships, connections, all the things. And so, if you haven't caught up on any of that and you're new to it on this episode, I encourage you to go back and watch the previous four streams. Okay, they're rather long. All right, you can definitely watch them and listen to them in parts. However, it is important that we give ourselves time to look at that because we cover a lot of things, a lot of ground. We set a rough foundation. We looked at data, analytics, numbers. What do those things have to legitimately say about dating apps? We answered the question of should Christians use dating apps? Okay. And we also took a dive into the five to seven objections regarding dating apps and giving some thoughts. Again, my goal in this entire stream and this entire setup is not to tell you, hey, you need to use them. No, don't use them. Yes, no. Okay. You hear a lot of that debates on whether or not they're good, bad, everything in between. I want to give you the real. Okay. I'm here to give you the actual data information, not just from research, but even from what I've, of course, from a little bit of personal experience, but also with clients that I'm currently working with, okay, in these similar spaces and giving you real experiences and thoughts to think on to make a decision for yourself on whether or not you want to use them or not, okay? And as we've actually discovered throughout this entire time is there's a lot more behind the scenes that people just aren't ready for. Okay, unhealed wounds, attachment styles that are more so in an unhealed perspective. There's so many other things that you're running into way before the app itself becomes the issue, way before the apps themselves become the problem. Okay. And so this is actually going to take us another layer deeper into that. And like I said, now with all that introduction, I got about like less than 20 minutes. Okay. So we're gonna kind of get through this. All right. And I want you guys who are listening, if you're watching live, if you are watching the replay, definitely have something to write with. This is going to be one of those streams that you're going to want to have saved and you're going to want to listen back to because the real question that we have now arrived at in our series is really not asking the question of whether or not you should use dating apps. It's asking the question, are you ready to handle what the dating apps and using them will expose in you? Okay. The question is no longer centered on should you or should you not use dating apps. Okay. We've kind of presented some perspectives on things to consider on both sides. All right. With the people who have said, hey, this hasn't worked out for me, people who have said, yes, it has. All right. The percentages, the possibilities, the probability, all the things. The question has now become, do you have what it takes to navigate the dating space and what it will expose in you? Okay. Because truth is, a lot of people are blaming the dating apps for their issues in dating, their issues in connections, their issues in this and all the things, when in reality, it is something in you that is not aligned, that is not healthy. And these usages of dating apps The struggles in them are actually what's bringing these things up in you. Okay. What's up, Maya? Good to see you. We are just getting started and we're going to be real quick. Okay. Now, this is not to suggest, right, that you haven't had poor experiences. And as a result of those poor experiences in the dating field and in the dating apps, that, like it's kind of presented an issue. But we're going to go a little bit further in some of these things because we have to really ask ourselves from an honest place, are you ready to date? Right? Are you genuinely ready to date? Because as we've exposed throughout this journey, there are plenty of people who are getting on these apps for a plethora of reasons. And even though we cannot control why somebody else is on the app, why somebody else is connecting, why somebody else is swiping right on your profile, why somebody else is sharing interests, we control what we can control. And what we can control is our responses. What we can control is how we choose to navigate what we say yes to, what we say no to. And more importantly, we're able to control where we start, the beginning to our experiences in the dating space. Okay. And so we have to genuinely ask ourselves, are you honestly ready to date? Well, coach, how do I know I'm honestly ready to date? Well, we've kind of highlighted some of this in previous talks, but we're going to quickly highlight some of these beginning steps here. Okay. Number one, we have to really ask ourselves, where are we at mentally, emotionally, and spiritually? Okay. Where are we at mentally, emotionally, and spiritually? How do we grade those scales of where we are mentally, emotionally, and spiritually? Here's how we make it simple. Okay. With your mental approach. All right. Not just asking yourself, what are your views on life? That feels like a very generic approach. But if we were to get to an application of it, we're asking ourselves, hey, how am I able to handle my thoughts? When thoughts come and thoughts go, what are my response? Okay. Do I allow myself to just downward spiral? Just allow myself to go in so many subtle places of overthinking? Okay. Am I in a place mentally, right, where I have a sense of clarity, not just needing to know exactly where I'm going and what I'm doing? We're not saying that, but do I have a sense of clarity and control with the thoughts that enter in and out of my mind? Okay. That's a really good place. All right. Now, if we go into the emotional aspect, how do I handle my emotions? Right? How do I respond and engage with my emotions? What is my relationship to silence like? How can I handle being in my own presence, sitting with what I feel, and not allowing what I feel to take the driver's seat? Right? For some of you, this might be more of a question of how am I feeling towards overcoming the previous relationships I've been in? Right? Am I still ruminating and wishing that things were different with the person that I'm no longer with? Am I still chasing and clinging and hoping that they come back around? Is this a relationship that I have found myself to be fully over? If the answer is no, on the last question specifically, then you should already bow out, right? Because you cannot potentially put yourself in the best position to experience somebody else to the fullest when you are still stuck on who's no longer around. When you are still clinging to a version of yourself or a version of someone else that is no longer present in your life to the degree that you once had them. You cannot fully love someone else when that love is still going to someone who's already told you no in some direction. Okay. We have to be honest about these things. This is going to put a nice light. All right. This is going to put a nice light on where we are in all these areas. All right. And so we have to really ask ourselves from a mental and emotional space, how aligned are we? How aligned am I in my thinking? Do my thoughts, words, and actions agree? In other words, does my yes mean yes? My no mean no? Okay. These things are very, very important. And it doesn't take you needing to meet other people to figure out that these things are or are not present within you and that you don't have the capacities for these things. Okay. Here's another great question to ask yourself and to sit and ponder on when it comes to curiosities of dating, the purposes of dating, right? Am I engaging in this from a place of loneliness and fear? I'm running out of time. Biological clock is ticking. Okay. Maybe there's some anxieties that I'm moving from, the stories I'm telling myself. that are pushing me to not move from a place of abundance, but to cling to outcomes and to cling to people as fast as I can, to allow feelings to just develop to the strongest levels to the point where I lose control. I step into lanes of obsession and controlling other people, right? Like these are emotions that we have to learn how to navigate and check and keep in check so that we do not put ourselves in further deficits, pushing ourselves further out than where we need to be and what we're ready for. Okay. Are you going into this from a place of loneliness or a place of wholeness? What's the difference? Well, when I'm going in it from loneliness, my greatest fear that's pushing me is the fact that I don't want to be by myself. I am uncomfortable being on my own. And I'm not talking about like being on your own, Miss Independent, Mr. Independent, you're able to pay all your bills. No, no, no. I'm talking about you being able to sit in a space by yourself, being able to not be on your phone, being able to actually enjoy your presence without having to engage in conversation. Silence is a friend. That's a really great place to be. I can't tell y'all how many people I have not only had the privilege of coaching, but I've had the privilege of sitting next to in meeting who have a massive problem with being by themselves. Boredom is such a challenge to you that you would rather go pick up classes and do so many other things that you don't need to do just to cover the space to keep yourself busy because you're constantly running from something that's on the inside of you that has yet to be healed. And if that is you, don't date. I'll be the coach to tell you. Sit down. Don't date because I don't know what you expect to do with somebody who's healthy, who doesn't always feel the need to take up space with words and conversation and connection to you. When you don't feel comfortable enough to sit within your own presence, with your own emotions, with your own thoughts, and learning how to regulate. Okay. So when you're moving from loneliness, this is a place where you're thinking your fear is driving you into these decisions. You're choosing from pain, you're choosing from fear, you're choosing from anxieties, you're choosing from places of overwhelmingness. When you're choosing from wholeness, here's the kicker, you don't need them. Can somebody put that there? When you're choosing from wholeness, you don't need the person that you're connecting to. It's a want. They are additional. I am not losing myself in the midst of connecting to said person. My peace does not belong to them, and I'm able to remain as I am, who I am, as I'm connecting to other people. When I choose from wholeness, I don't think and treat this other person as if their entire mission in life is to complete me. That is massive. You know you're ready for a healthy relationship and to date when you can genuinely look at that and say, I don't need them to survive. I do not. Because here's what happens when you convince yourself that you need somebody to survive and move on, you cling to outcomes, you cling to various different stories, you engage in forms of enmeshment. And before you know it, you begin to actually make this person the center of your world, forgetting that you have responsibilities, you have places to be, things to do, people to see, that you have your own purpose and calling in life that you have to tend to daily, that you have responsibilities that you need to tend to daily. You will push all that to the side to make this person the center of your world. And I'm telling you, if you need that, you don't need to date. Take a seat. Just take a seat. Okay. Here's another great question. Are you looking for connection or validation? I don't have time to go into all of these. Okay. I just want to give you some beginning steps to looking at some of this. I got 8 minutes. All right. Are you looking for connection or validation? If I'm looking for connection, I'm connecting from a place of groundedness. I'm not in a hurry. Okay. I am not doubting who I am in the midst of someone telling me no, they're not interested. Okay. When I'm looking for connections and I'm trying to create connections from places of validation, the whole reason why I'm connecting to this person is because I believe they make me look better, not because together we can become better. Different things. When I'm with you because you make me look better, I constantly cling to you for affirmations and external validations. Now, there's nothing wrong with reassurances. There's nothing wrong with having those moments and having those things. That's very beautiful. And what do you do when you're not around this person? How do you affirm and validate yourself? Because in the event of this person not being around to the same degree you want them to be around, you've got to learn how to regulate yourself and speak life into yourself. Connection doesn't leave someone drained and doesn't treat someone else as if they're your personal lackey, mule, butler, whatever. This is somebody that is able to pour into you. You're able to pour into them. This is a connection where it benefits the both of you, supporting one another instead of simply taking from one another. Here's a great, great ideation or picture of connection versus validation. If you're coming in for connection, your cups as individuals are full, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You've learned to ground yourself. You've learned to control your thoughts. You've learned to regulate your emotions. You've learned to not take rejections and know personally. You've learned how to engage in conflict without calling people out of their names. You've learned to ground yourself in healthiness through the duration of relationships you've built, where you are in your singleness, moving in different varieties of healthiness. Okay. Your cup is full. And here's a beautiful picture. If you have like two teacups on saucers, if they put them in front of you and they're both full to the brim, and imagine each person behind those cups just taking turns pouring into each other, you realize how both of them eventually go into states of overflow. Because when I pour into me, it gives me the permission to pour back into you. But if I'm looking for validation externally, I don't come in with my cup full. I come in making you the subject of everything that makes me full. So I no longer take the responsibility of encouraging myself, validating myself, speaking life into myself, taking care of myself, showing up for myself mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. Instead, I make the person that I'm connected with everything. Losing sight of myself, losing sight of security, losing sight of balance, losing sight of what real love is. And now everything is contingent upon this person saying all the right things to me. That's an issue. That's an issue. And we have to legitimately ask ourselves these questions before we even step into a form of dating and moving on dating apps and trying to figure out what makes sense and what doesn't. We got to get into alignment and we got to get into agreement mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Okay. Are you trying to be chosen or are you ready to choose wisely? If you're moving from a place of trying to be chosen, you will perform, people please, and dismiss your values all for the sake of somebody telling you that you're cute, giving you their number, and wanting to put you through the mattress. Let's just call it what it is. But if you are ready to choose wisely, you recognize that you're being curious enough to ask yourself, even though this may benefit them, does it benefit me? Now, this isn't to go in selfishly, but this is to go in and say, hey, I get the permission of setting the tone of what I allow, the boundaries that I'm setting around me, and how I want to engage with people healthily. Hey, I appreciate you a ton, Miriam. Thank you a ton over on TikTok. That comment goes a long way. Okay. If you're trying to be chosen, you'll constantly perform and people please, dismissing your values. But if you're choosing wisely, okay, you're listening intently, present fully, and you're honest not about what this person could be, but for who they're showing you they are right now. Y'all gonna have to listen back to this. Okay. Can you handle being ignored without spiraling? Is a great question. Because some of y'all get on here and y'all get upset and frustrated and thrown away by the fact of somebody you don't even know ghosting you on an app that you have yet to connect to. And a big part of that has nothing to do with the ghosting, has everything to do with what that ghosting revealed in you. And that's an unhealed wound of an attachment, anxiousness, fear, abandonment that we have to actually get to the bottom of and use that as a form of curiosity to self-reflect. It has nothing to do with what that person did in terms of ghosting you. Had everything to do with what that ghosting revealed in you. Okay? Can you handle being liked without over attaching? Y'all just bought 30 minutes. My client's not here yet. Bought 30 minutes. That's a beautiful thing. Okay? Can you handle being liked without over attaching? Some of y'all, the only way that you're going to be able to test this is when you put it into the into the testing realm. When you put yourself out there, you get to meet people. Somebody likes you. Somebody reaches out to you. Okay, but one of the bigger problems in this dating space is people are putting so much expectations on someone you don't even know. You just met for a couple days. There's no process. There's no curiosity. There's no slowing down because everything's in a hurry. And I promise you, if you cannot get to the place where you can handle being liked without over attaching, making this person the center of your world on day one, the moment they sent a message, the moment they told you that you were attractive, they hit you with a pickup line, they reached out, sent a DM, we got some bigger things to work with. And I promise you, it's not just that moment that's the issue. It's revealing something in you that you are now recognizing as it relates to the behaviors external of you. And instead of blaming these external places, we have to get to a place of looking inwardly and being curious, what did this bring up in me? Okay. Can you handle rejection without making it your identity? Y'all, we could probably have an entire conversation on rejection. And we might. Okay. We might. But you have to get to a legitimate place in your healing where you recognize that not every rejection comes with clarity. Not every no is a no of substance. Not every no is a form of affirmation or reconfirmation of what you're lacking. I want to put this into frame right now that for most of you, this really might bless a lot of y'all when it comes to engaging in relationships. Okay. This is something I'll bless y'all. I want y'all to write this down. Put it in the chat wherever you are. Okay. If you can't put it in the chat, write it down. You're gonna remember this. Rejection is either about preference or preparation. Rejection is either about preference or preparation. They either prefer something different than you or they're not prepared for you. Now, here's the truth that a lot of y'all have to recognize without using therapeutic language to hide behind the fact that you just won't be liked by everybody. You are not everybody's cup of tea. I don't care how fine you are. I don't care how often you go to the gym, how often you read your Bible and go to church, how spiritual you are, how many rooms you can float in with eating communion for breakfast. I don't care how much you fast and pray. You are not going to be everybody's cup of tea. One of the greatest lessons I learned is that I can do all the right things and still not be wanted, not because I'm the wrong person, but because I'm not everybody's preference. My God in heaven. Knock my phone over. I have to let you know. I have to let you know, man. I have to let you know. One of the greatest lessons I had in my journey of dating, healing, everything in between is recognizing that I can do all the right things and still not be wanted, not because I'm the wrong person, but because I'm just not that person's preference. And if you get that, you have a lot easier of a time navigating rejection. Jesus told his disciples when they go into the town, into the cities, and they knock on the doors, those who welcome you in, you sit, you eat with them, and you share the good news. He said, but in the event that you're not welcome, knock the dust off your feet, AKA, don't take it personal. Don't take it personal. And one of the biggest exposures to the struggle of rejection for a lot of you is that you take it personally. You take it personally. Veronica, we can definitely take a prayer request. We have to get to the place of being able to build capacity to handle rejection healthily. And for some of you, before you even see it in relationships, I want you to realize that you'll see it in your job. You'll see it in your work. You'll see it when you post content, record a video, and it only has 20 views. You post a comment and it didn't get as many likes. You cooked a meal at home for the family only for nobody to touch it. Trust me when I tell you, rejection shows up in various amounts of directions. It's not solely just in dating. You're going to see this in a variety of ways. But you have to build the capacity to handle rejection healthily. And it starts with the stories and meaning you attribute to those who reject you. And realizing that you have the power to control it. You have the power to control it. You have the power to control it. Okay. If there's nothing else you hear from this live, please remember that when it comes to overcoming rejection, you have the power to control it. Rejection only has as much power over you as you give it. And it all starts with the stories you tell to yourself regarding someone telling you no. Okay. And are you healed enough? Here's the last question. Are you healed enough to date without bleeding on people? Now, this is an interesting question. This is going to take a lot of self reflection. A lot, y'all, this only works if you're honest with yourself. Okay. Because some of you go on dates and the first thing you like to do is trauma dump on people and call it connection. When in reality, you are oversharing because you think that by oversharing, that's going to make them want you more. For some of you, you are out here dating and you are making other people pay for what they have no idea was done to you. The walls you have built up, the disconnection and dysfunction you're operating in, the inability to be honest about where you are, what you're doing, how you're feeling, you're making other people pay for what they had no idea was happening in your life. And that isn't to say that we should go into these situations perfect and we should go into these situations with no flaws. But I'm telling you, if you have yet a clue about what it is that you are struggling with internally that is causing you to treat, mistreat, minimize, dismiss other people around you, we have a bigger problem on our hands than you trying to create a profile on a dating app you have no business on. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. These are the things that we have to address intentionally in order to date intentionally. A lot of y'all talking about strict programs and how God don't play with you, but yet you play in your face every day because you steadily giving time and attention to people who don't align with you, and you're steadily giving time and attention to things that don't want you, people that don't want you. You're steadily giving time and attention to numbing yourself from things that you have to sit down and heal through. I'm speaking in plain English because I don't have a lot of time. But I need you to get this. I need you to get this because what you'll later learn is that the foundations of relationships that you build matter. How you start a thing, how you start a thing is ultimately how you'll find yourself needing to keep a thing. Will somebody write that down? Write it down in your journal, write it down in the chat. I don't care where you write it down. You want to keep a note somewhere. How you start a thing is what you will have to continuously do to keep a thing. How you start a thing will be the very thing you will have to keep doing to keep a thing. I know I'm saying different versions, but you get it. Okay? The foundations matter. So if you built this relationship on loneliness, you built this relationship on lack, you built this relationship on saying you needed this person to be whole, then guess what? In order for that relationship to sustain, you're going to have to keep chasing and pursuing as if they are the missing piece to the entirety of your life. And the healthiest way to go about dating and building relationships is not treating somebody as if they complete you, but treating them as if they have an opportunity to complement you and be additional to your life, not necessary for your life. Am I making sense? So we have to be able to sit with some of these things and be curious and ask ourselves these questions instead of going on these apps and talking about favorite color this and favorite color that. Instead of going on these apps talking about you know, playlists, favorite music, okay? Guess where I went here, guess what I did there. Bam. We got some legit things to sit with and work through instead of playing games. But if you can't even answer these questions for yourself, I don't know what you think asking these questions to somebody else is going to do. Because I promise you, when you ask these questions to the wrong person, when you ask them, you'll hear crickets. Ain't a whole lot of response. Ain't a whole lot of going back and forth here. And that's a great indication that we don't align. And for some of us, we just need to be honest. We just need to be honest. Dating in and of itself actually gets a whole lot easier and a whole lot lighter when we're just willing to be honest. Like, fam, I'm ready for the journey of it. Or, man, I'm going to be honest, yo. I just got out of a relationship, just got out of a talking stage, just got out of a pursuit. I've invested a lot emotionally into this person. So I might need to take a month or two and just sit down for a little bit. Take a break, recover. Okay. Might need to think some things through, get realigned with my values, and keep it moving. Yo, your boy had an amazing experience. An amazing experience. Dating somebody, man, it was awesome. Didn't work out. My first instinct was not to hop on a dating app. My first instinct after all of that subsided was not to get on a TikTok and post a story time. People who were around me, mentors and coaches who remind me will tell you I was in calls. I was toe up, but I had to make the time to sit down and do some intentional healing work because that relationship brought some things up in me that I had to be intentional about to process instead of taking that back out there and duplicating it in different forms and fashions. So sometimes we just need to be honest about where we are, what we're doing, what we're going through, what we're seeing, what we're experiencing, and taking a break. Because a lot of y'all getting on these dating apps, majority of people on dating apps are not ready to date. That's what makes the dating pool so bad. Because a lot of people are out here and talking about they're not ready to date. They're not willing to date. They don't have it. They're not ready for it. And some of y'all are taking some of those responses of them not being ready for you after a few dates as something that is wrong with you. When oftentimes they're just not ready for what's required to be with you. Take it as a compliment. There's some things that require a little bit more to be around me. And the only way that some people will realize that is when they get connected to something that's better than what they're used to having. And knowing the right person is going to come along to make room and make preparation for those things. It's not something you're going to have to guess and fight and figure out through the whole duration of your relationship. Okay? Put a one in the chat if this is making sense so far. All right. Now, okay, now let's move on to these last few things. Told y'all I was going to be quick. Okay. These are some questions. Those are some questions. I want y'all to write these questions down. I want y'all to really, really write these questions down. These are some basic ones. Okay. All right. Outside of the ones that we just listed, if you really want to know at any given moment, whether it's now or later, hey, am I ready to get back in these dating streets? Okay. Am I really ready to engage with somebody? Am I really ready to deal with relationships and to navigate them as they come? All right. I want you to ask yourself these next few questions. Okay. Number one, And the bigger questions are going to come at the end, but these are some application questions to ask just specifically to using dating apps or dating app readiness for those of you who want to use them and are like, yeah, I need to put myself out there. Okay. All right. Number one, why do I want to use the apps right now? These only work if you're honest. Why? Matter of fact, you probably should get used to asking why to various different things that you experience and see in your life from here on out. It's called peeling the onion back. Let me ask why to what it is I'm feeling, what it is I'm thinking, what it is I'm experiencing. It'll make the process a little bit lighter. Why do I want to use the apps right now? Okay? And don't settle for a I don't know, or don't settle for an answer that's like it's just because I want to. No. Let's be honest about your intentions. Because some of you are trying to figure out your dating goals and don't realize that somebody else on the other side has already figured them out and you're wasting their time. So if you're figuring out your dating goals, I don't think you should be on the apps. If you're trying to figure out what you want, let's not keep using people as products that you can just keep giving sample sizes to figure out what you want. One of the greatest misconceptions that I've come across in my time of dating, singleness, and everything in between are people saying because they don't know what they want, they're going to use other people and a combination of other people to figure it out. And you give yourself access to the wrong people, and that's why you tore up like you are now. Because you're giving access to too many people in the name of trying to figure something out. I'm trying to figure my dating goals out. No, I need you to come in with an intentionality on what it is that you're looking for. Now, again, it is not about controlling the intentionality of other people. This is what y'all have to understand. I see a comment in there. Shout out to Daniel. Yeah, I want a serious relationship and dating apps aren't it. I respect anybody who's saying dating apps aren't for them. My job is not to force you to go either direction. But this is why I say your job is to be intentional, because when you choose to be intentional, it weeds out everybody else who isn't. It is highly impossible to not come across somebody that is intentional when you are just as intentional. That does not mean that you won't come across people who are unintentional. That's part of the game. But as being part of the game, we also have to realize that if I choose to move with a specific energy of intentionality and not desperation, then I have a greater chance of creating the right connections that make the most sense for me, which comes with more process, comes with more curiosity, comes with more questions, comes with more movement. When I'm choosing to be intentional, I set the tone and pace. So anybody who's not intentional, figuring things out, doesn't know what they want, then I automatically know this isn't for me. Oh, I'm just connecting to meet new people and make new friends. I got enough friends. This ain't it. Another moment of saying no and another moment of leading with intentionality. It's going to be very hard to not find somebody that is just as intentional. Okay. So why do I want to use the apps right now? Be the sifter. Kayla, you talking good. Be the sifter. Everybody wants these environments to be sifted for them without them coming in and doing the intentional effort and work. No, you have to be the one to lead in those areas. Know what you want and come into agreement with that agrees. That makes sense. That aligns. Right? Why do I want to use the apps right now? What's your biggest focus? What's your goal? What's your biggest purpose? Okay? That's what you want to ask, and be honest. And be honest. Okay? Number 2, am I trying to escape loneliness? Is there any part of me that feels lonely in this season and I'm using these apps as a means to escape? Here's a sign to know you are. Okay? When there's a quiet moment, in every quiet moment throughout your day, when it's time to just sit and enjoy your own presence, You run to the apps. That's a great start. Okay. When I'm experiencing loneliness, okay, typically you don't have your hands to enough of the right things. You maybe not typically have your hands enough of your time spent to the right things. Got too much time on your hands. You need to go put your hands to something. Create something, build something, maintain something. Whatever that looks like could look different for a lot of people. But I know for me, especially in this season, you boys stepping back out here in these dating streets. I'm not on them dating apps every day, but it is something that is intentional and intentional enough to include at some point throughout my week. But it's typically during the time when I got time to transition out of my day. I don't have time to feel these aspects of loneliness, not because loneliness is, I guess honestly, yeah, loneliness isn't even existent in my world right now. Not because I'm surrounded by so many people, not because I'm surrounded by so many things, but because of the intentionality behind my efforts and daily energy to what's in front of me, to putting my hands to what I have been called to in this season and making the most of it. Oftentimes, when people suggest that they're lonely, my first response, it may not be all, and it may not be reflective of all, but oftentimes my first response is to be curious, to ask yourself, where do you feel lack of purpose in your life? Where do you feel a lack of direction in your life? Because what many people say is loneliness is really you just saying, I don't have enough options. And if you need options to feel validated, you're in the wrong place. Okay. Options are overrated. And options might affect, what's so crazy is when you're healed, you'll have options. That's what's so crazy about it. As overrated as options can be from a cultural perspective, because people validate options more than they do quality, quantity over quality. I think it's quality over quantity. And when your quality is high because of your healing, because of the wholeness and the intentionality that you move mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, as a result, automatically you're going to have more options. But having more options doesn't move you because it's more about what are the qualities behind the options available. Makes a difference. Okay. Here's another question. Am I still attached to someone else? We just highlighted that earlier. Okay. Am I still attached to someone else? Is there someone else that I'm still wanting and that I'm using other people to get over? Okay. Lust and loneliness equals a sign to express creativity. Kayla, you are cooking, sis. You're cooking. All of that is energy, right? All of that is energy. All that's energy in some degree. The sexual energy, the horniness, the urges, okay, the loneliness, I need to be around people, all these things. All of that is energy that has to go somewhere, right? If it's not going to maybe what you're feeling in the moment, it's gotta go somewhere. Some of the most creative people, believe it or not, are some of the craziest people when it comes to the sexual energies and all those kind of things. Need to go build a birdhouse, need to go do something, right? Something that's maybe more aligned in the purposes and North Stars and directions that you're going with your life. Absolutely. Right? Lust is something that drains you because you constantly have to go and satisfy that feeling because you just don't know how to say no. And you'll realize how all of that is always fleeting, never lasting. Okay. Am I still attached to someone else? Some of you, y'all have to be extremely honest. Truth is, you are not over your ex. Truth is, you are not over that person that you were pursuing, that you wanted the world with, and they said no. Truth is, you haven't gotten over that last rejection. And here's another truth, you can get over that just as quickly. But some of you need to stop going into these dating scenes and situations expecting someone you're just now meeting to be the caveat to getting you over somebody you have yet to let go of, because it always comes down to your decision to walk away. And how do we do that, coach? It's not by constantly thinking on what could have been, it's by living in the realities of what is. Acceptance. I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers. I don't know what's going on in their minds. I don't need to solve their nervous systems and their hijacked of nervous systems and are they anxious or avoidant? No, no, no. I just need to accept that this is the version of them that they showed themselves to be to me. This is where they are. This is what took place. This is the reality of the situation. Acceptance doesn't mean I know it all. Acceptance simply just means I don't like it and I'm okay with it. Acceptance means I may not have all the answers and I'll be okay moving forward. Okay. Am I still attached to someone else? That's a really good question you should ask yourself. Here's the next one. Do I know what I'm dating for? Y'all, this comes with values. This comes with knowing your values. What are your values? What should be your values? Well, not defined by me, but a good friend of mine, Dr. Zeb, who defines this as attitudes, principles, perspectives, and beliefs that govern my life among the world around me. Okay. So when I'm looking at my values, what values am I dating for? A lot of y'all are looking at the surface level things. How tall, how slim thick, how muscular, how often they in the gym, all these things. And I'm not saying attraction don't have a role because it does. But for some of you, beauty only runs skin deep because you're a 10 when I looked at you, but when I got in your presence, you quickly dropped from a 10 to a 2 because of your attitude, because of your perspectives, because of your beliefs, because of the lack of alignment that's present. I was just doing a video for my good a friend and coach, Dr. Zeb, just kind of handling some of his social media, and he had a very awesome point in conversation that he mentioned where he said, "Man, there's a lot of 9s and 10s that ain't getting married." And one of the reasons why they aren't is because they are finding each other attractive surfacely, but when it comes to intentionality and depth, it's lacking. Whereas those who you may claim as a 5 or a 6 getting married left and right. Getting married because they possess something that most 9s and 10s in a cultural standpoint, standard, meter, metric, whatever you want to call it, don't have. Emotional intelligence, emotional maturity, spiritual foundations. They know how to control their thoughts. You don't have to worry about them crashing out and hitting you upside the head because there's something about someone who has the ability to manage their emotions, to have clarity of mind and heart, to have a spiritual foundation that makes a difference. And some of us are chasing the wrong thing. You asking for a yearner and you're asking for somebody who's 10 toes down, but you keep overlooking the ones who don't just have the capacity to do it, but actively know how to do it because you see them do it for themselves because they don't look the part. I ain't saying you got to date a duck. Ain't nobody saying that. Coach is very well aware that attractiveness has a role with the beauty and physicality, but realize attraction goes a lot further than just what I see on the surface. It goes a lot further than what I see on the surface. Yeah, not a duck, not a duck. We not out here. We not out here just dating whoever, right? As long as they love Jesus, it's enough for me. That's cap. Because if that was the case, you would have said yes to the first cat that shot his shot, but you realize he didn't look the part for you. So we ain't gonna keep lying saying attraction don't matter. We not gonna keep lying and saying that this person has to, like what? What are we talking about? No, no, no. Attraction matters. I want to like what I see. I want you to be easy on the eyes. And let's also realize that attraction and redefining it goes further than the beauty on skin deep. So some of you got to be honest with yourself. Okay. Now, again, if you like your body and you like the way it look, and that's the body that you feel proud to hand to your future spouse, by all means. But for some of you, you gotta make a decision. I gotta get in the gym. I gotta get in shape. I got to go do something to get myself in that position, not so that I can just be seen as eye candy, but so that I can appreciate myself more. Because there is something extremely attractive to someone who is like, I'm willing to take care of my body while I have it. Okay. Do I know what I'm dating for? Do I know what I'm dating for? Hannah, send me a message. I won't be taking any requests right now. I'm actually about to shut my stream off. I got a call. Do I know what I'm dating for? We're controlling what we can control. What are my values? What are my values? Attitudes, principles, perspectives, beliefs that govern my life among the world around me. What are my values? If you say you value peace and you say that there's no relationship, if the relationship don't have peace, you cutting it off. I don't want to see you going back to toxic and going back to what you should have left. I don't want to hear that. Okay? This is very, very important. Do I know what I'm dating for? And for some of you, in all honesty, you're not dating for nothing. You dating to escape feelings. You'd rather be felt than known. You're not being intentional. And that explains why your dating experiences have been as bad as they are. And it has less to do with an app. Okay. All right. I'm going to run through these last few questions really quickly. Can I say no without guilt? In other words, how deep is my people pleasing wound? How deep is my people pleasing wound? Am I okay and at peace with saying no? Some of y'all, if you're anything like me, I used to date when I was first stepping out into some dating spaces in the very beginning. Man, your boy was comfortable riding the flow. I was comfortable just letting things go, maybe just letting it float, moving around, saying, all the things. I used to be real comfortable with that. Now, because I am much more in a healed, aligned position, if I know it don't make sense, my no is just as good as my yes. And that is how you know you're healing in the right directions. When you are not afraid to say no because you feel it's your responsibility to have to share an emotional responsibility of other people. When you feel like, hey, there's just something in me. There's just something in me. Like, no, we have to be able to say no without guilt. And if that's not where you are, I'm not saying you can't grow there. I'm not trying to put extra limitations on what you can and cannot date. But I think that's something we should be curious about. I'm not asking you to go into these dating spaces perfect. But if you're not willing to be curious about these things right now, whew, dating isn't just going to expose it in you, but you might mess around and agree and say yes to something you really don't want, you don't need, doesn't align with you, but you'll say yes anyway because I don't want to hurt this person's feelings. And then you'll be miserable in the marriage that you'll have. And you'll be sitting in front of me talking about how can I leave when we realize when we got in it, it wasn't what we wanted in the first place. These are questions we have to reflect on intentionally so that we know exactly where we're going and what we're looking to do. Can I say no without guilt? In other words, how deep is my people pleasing wound? I got these last 3 questions. I hope you're writing them down. Rewatch the replay over on my YouTube. All handles are the same. So you can catch these and we'll be able to dissect these a little bit later. I got to get to my call. The first question, can I be rejected without self-hatred? What is my matter of fact, I'll ask it in a different way. What is my relationship to rejection? You want to know if you're ready to date, you're ready to step out in these dating spaces, get on dating apps. What is my relationship to rejection? If you are steadily and experiencing rejections, are constantly getting to the brink of even to the direction of even considering some harmful things to yourself, we have a problem. We have a problem. If somebody cannot say no to you and still feel safe around you, we have a problem. If somebody cannot say no to you without you falling apart and kicking your feet like you a 2-year-old in the middle of the street, in the middle of the floor, okay? don't know why they restricting stuff. Then hey, we need to deal with that. We need to deal with that. And we need to deal with that intentionally. Okay? Rejection is either by preference or preparation, like we talked about earlier. Question number 2, can I move slowly when I'm excited? What's my pace like? What tone am I willing to set? Some of y'all, the first message y'all get, somebody shooting a shot, showing interest, you ready to go. I'm ready to give it all. I'm ready to overshare. I'm ready to overgive my mind, heart, and body. And we have to be able to engage in these things in slow processes. I don't know you. So let's actually create a process where we got to go through that invites somebody a little bit closer, bit by bit, without giving so much so soon. Okay. A lot of this is more about us being able to regulate our emotions and our thoughts so that way those things don't control and consume us when we engage with someone. I know they're cute. I know they're attractive. I know that they seem to have a good head on their shoulders. And I know that looks like just like your type, but I need you to take it slow. That means don't be in a rush to have a 6-hour conversation on the phone. Don't be in a rush to be up late at night on a late night FaceTime and falling asleep on the phone and y'all only know each other for the first day. That means set a boundary and be intentional about that, because I don't want to attach to an outcome quicker than I connect to the person in front of me. And the best way to move slowly when you're excited is to be honest about what you're seeing and being in the present. You are not at the altar, you are right here. You are not that far, you're right here. Let's be right here. Let's be in today and what's around us today. Finally, okay? One of the ways you can move slowly, moving in gratitude, being in the present, those kind of things are really helpful. Finally, all right, this is an interesting question. Can I stop when my peace is disturbed? Okay. In other words, am I willing to say no when this is no longer in alignment? Because when your peace is disturbed, that means we are stepping out of places of alignment to make accommodations for something that does not fit the direction we're going and who we want to be and the relationships we want to create. So don't ignore when your peace is disturbed internally. We should be attentive to that, because peace is an internal job, first and foremost. And because peace is an internal job, if we end up putting that peace in the hands of other people, it will not only be easily disturbed, we will easily go into places of insanity. So when peace is an inward job, that means it's my responsibility to maintain it, which means it's my responsibility to maintain it based on what I say yes and no to. Boy, I hope y'all getting this. Boy, I hope y'all getting this. What I say yes and what I say no to matters, and it oftentimes is a determining factor to the peace I hold. So when peace is being disturbed, how do you respond? Okay. And there's a whole nother lane of conversations we can build around, you know, is what is peace? What can we consider peace? Peace is something that matches your values and remain and keeps you in alignment. There's a reason why a lot of y'all can feel anxious and feel out of position and feel insane. It ain't even really because of a lot of the craziest things that maybe are happening around you. It's because you're continuously making room for things that don't align with you. It's misalignment, fam. For some of you, I'm not going to oversimplify it across the board, but for some of you, that is what it is. We are unaligned. And when we're unaligned, we're losing our mind. Okay? So I want you guys to think on these questions. Where am I at mentally? Where am I at emotionally? Where am I at spiritually? Physical and financial will follow through. We need to figure out these first three. Where am I at mentally? Where am I at emotionally? Where am I at where am I at spiritually? What's my relationship with silence? What's my relationship with no? What are my values? And how am I showing up to remain aligned in those values daily? Here's a great question, and I'll end it off here. What does the abundant version of me do in this situation? Well, what does the abundant version of me look like, coach? It's the version of you that isn't afraid to say no when something doesn't align and doesn't agree. The abundant version of you is the one that's willing to wait for the right person and not settle because it's just what's there and it's just what's left. The abundant version of you does not make a decision out of fear, out of anxiousness, out of lack. It makes a decision from a place of fullness. It makes a decision from a place of alignment, not what's missing. Abundance asks what's remaining. Thank you, Ashley. This could apply in regular life and it can apply everywhere. Absolutely. Abundance does not speak from the language of lack. Abundance speaks from the language of what's remaining, what's good about here. What does the abundant version of you do in this moment that isn't centered on lack, isn't centered on hurry, isn't centered on discouragement, isn't centered on survival paradigms and states, but is focused on love, peace, joy, self-control? Where are we at on this? Because when it's in peace, it's controlled. When it's in peace, we're moving in self-control. Okay? Where am I at here? And I want you to give yourself an honest grade. Give yourself an honest grade. We're not asking you to be perfect in all areas, but if we can be in an honest grade, we actually have a greater chance at making more honest decisions and aligned decisions. Because a lot of this, here's the kicker, y'all, it's not so much about getting everything right. The answering these questions, doing an honest self-reflection does not eliminate dusties and crusties from showing up at your door. It does not eliminate people who don't qualify from showing up on your door, showing up on your messages, showing up and shooting a shot. What this does is it gives you leverage to not feel like it's your responsibility or your duty to give time to something that doesn't align. It gives you leverage to choose healthily, consistently, and from a healthier foundation. That is what you need to date healthily. We don't need everybody to be rid of for us to be able to make a decision. If it was easy, everybody would do it. But as we've talked about in this series, there are plenty of people who are still getting married, still doing relationships in a healthy way, and are still doing it to a T. You can too, but you've got to be willing to put yourself in the best positions, and it starts with where you are mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It starts with where you are mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. When you do that and you get into alignment, your decision making is a lot more clearer. Your decision making, who's available, is a lot more clearer. And what you're available for becomes a lot more abundant. Okay. And if you answer all these questions and now you feel like, hey, I'm ready because I'm using these apps because I'm looking for my spouse. I'm being intentional. Okay. I'm not wasting nobody's time. Okay. I'm not escaping loneliness. I feel pretty satisfied with life as is. All right. I'm not attached to anyone else. I've grieved those things. I've let them go. Okay. I know what I'm dating for. I know the values I'm looking for because I'm dating for character and value, not just what looks good, sounds good. Okay. I can say no. I can honor my no. I can honor the no of others. My relationship with rejection is healthy because it doesn't cause me to downward spiral, doesn't cause me to ruminate, doesn't cause me to become someone else, doesn't cause me to feel challenged in my identity, but I know how to regulate mentally, emotionally. Okay. I can move slowly, take my time, be intentional, not be in a hurry. And when my peace is disturbed, it is an indicator that this may not be in alignment. Therefore, I am free to let it go. If you say you're good in all those areas, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, okay? And some of the other questions that we asked earlier, and you're in a healthy place with those things, now we're moving to the next step. And that's just, hey, how do I actively discern what makes sense and what doesn't? And we've already solved over 50% of it. But there's some other conversations that we're going to build on that we're going to really touch on some of these other points that are going to make a massive difference. Put a one in the chat if this made sense, if this was helpful. Was this helpful? I hope it was. I hope it was. Okay. And we're going to come back and have more conversation on this. Okay. I can't promise it'll be tomorrow. Definitely probably won't be Saturday. No streams typically on Sunday. So we might reconvene next week. All right. But in the meantime, I hope this was helpful. These are some things that you want to come back to, listen to, rewatch, re listen to all the things. Okay. As we look to get into alignment, as we look into get into agreement, as we look to get to becoming secure. Okay. Dating securely requires these kind of efforts. Dating securely requires us to reflect on these points that we have just made in all of this stream and then some. And if you want to actually tangibly put these things into process for yourself so you don't continue losing yourself in the midst of dating and relationships beyond, send me a message with the keyword secure. We'll get you next steps on what that can look like. Also, okay, be sure to go to the top of my page on my socials. You'll find the link to be able to get your free relational diagnostic, take a free attachment style quiz so you can know your attachment style, because knowing your attachment style is massive in this dating space. So that way you can heal, and so that way you know what it looks like to navigate that among other people you connect with. Okay. If you don't do any of that, follow for more. Subscribe over there on YouTube. All the things as we continue building healthier, happier, and whole relationships with themselves, with ourselves, God, and others. I appreciate you guys a ton, and I can't wait to see you shortly. All right. Peace and blessings. Y'all take care. All right, YouTube. And